Good afternoon. Welcome to the Unit 6 of Block 2, which will be based on the ownership, how retail formats are worked out. So, in today's session, we will look at how the retail industry is looking into the uh, way they will can transact business. So if you see any retail, whether it's a retail industry or any industry, the business model is a critical part which defines of the process of value creation and making investments or putting up processes which can help deliver the value to the end user. So in the retail industry is nothing beyond that. So when you're talking about a retail industry, the business model also looks into how to create avenues or systems of of making products and services that you're going to sell in which markets and in what price points. Of course, you would also look into the kind of delivery mechanism that needs to be worked out. So, if you look at it from a kind of ownership that a retailer would like to have, it could boil down to having multiple formats in which the retail could be offered to the marketplace, be operating the marketplace. So, today's session, we are looking into various types of ownership models in retail, starting from independent chain, franchising, uh, cooperative centers, or we are talking in terms of the dealerships. And we will also look into the pros and cons of each of them because one must understand that it flows from the retail planning that what kind of a ownership structure would entail a better fit into the marketplace, and based on that the ownership models can be put into uh, the actual field. So having done that part of the retail planning process where we look into the retail environment, where is your market, what is your target market, is it too scattered or is it too concentrated, what kind of a geographical topography that needs to be looked into in terms of their engagement. So keep all those things need to be worked out at the retail planning environmental study and going on to working out the strategy that you would bring out in terms of the ownership. Now, the anybody can be a owner. It can be an individual person like you and me. It could be proprietor. It could be a company, or it could be various other intermediaries which are there, which are individual business outlets. They can play a part in owning the retail stores. So today, the market conditions may not be static all throughout in any given geographical location. So we look into various formats of the retail store formats. So going forward, we will look into what is the first type of the stores that is mostly visible in the Indian market or in the global market. Something which we talk about in India as the Kirana stores, the mom and pop stores. These are the stores which are independent stores. They are mostly owned by either individuals or a single entity or a single company may also own it. But then their scale are very less and they require less capital to start off. Now, because anybody can start off these individual independent stores, I would say the entry barriers we talk about when we talk about entry strategies into a given market, we look into the entry strategies. The entry to such independent store is almost very negligible. So that is why you will find most of the retailers would like to, or individuals would like to get into that space of independent individual stores. Some companies can also put up their own stores. But having said that, in India, mostly you find Kirana stores are visible in the landscape. As a result, what does it bring to the field? It brings out that okay, there are certain limitations which also brings out that they would be operational only for a particular location. Maybe they will be able to, may not be able to afford the kind of variety. Maybe they're looking what people are looking into, but at the same time, they're more flexible. They can open up at any location they feel like. They're not bound by so much by the legal criteria, which the other formats would, be entailing. So that's the reason why independent stores though they operate at a small scale, give you better penetration in the market. And from a marketing perspective for a company, if you are channelizing your products or your distribution strategy through these independent stores, you will be able to penetrate the market better. Another thing which also needs to be, if you remember, I talked about that mom and pop stores or kirana stores, because they operate at a very small scale, their control is much better. They may not have so much of negotiating power, but they definitely have a control and they can give personalized services to the customer's requirements. So a lot of people love to patronize such outlets. So as they can move around, they do not have much of, they have a lot of flexibility in terms of the location dynamics. They can be in a street, maybe they could open up a store, or in any particular corner, they could open up a store. So they give you a lot of avenues in terms of penetrating the market. However, it also has its own areas of problems. But before we get into the limitations and features, let's look into some of the features which you see with respect to independent stores. They are very much, as I told you before, their numbers are large. They are extremely visible in the space, so you cannot miss out. Take a sneak peek into any town that you go. When you go to the market area or any residential area, you will find the existence of such stores. And furthermore, in India, these are also come under the unorganized sector, so their visibility is very very high, which the companies cannot ignore. So obviously their numbers are high, and as I told you, they require very less, and since the ease of entry is there, they don't require too much of space. Their capital investment is also very much low, and they operate at a very basic level. So that's why also it becomes more flexible in terms of that. But yes, they cannot deal in such high volumes of product. They cannot have such high inventories. They keep low inventories and cater to the requirement of the people. So you'll find some companies also enter into this market for creating these kind of stores, but then those examples are less. Here in India, you'll find more of kirana stores dominating the market. Now, some of the benefits of this is that you can, as I told you, you have the flexibility. You can open up your stores wherever you feel like. You can also have a personal touch to the service that you can give to the customers, right? So you will find that customers would like to patronize such kind of store. They would like to come and spend some quality time. Maybe in the evenings, they would like to come and talk, make some quality time out there, develop a very basic bonding with these people. And that is very, very important, because going forward, they help you to establish a very effective communication between the shop and the customer, which is a very important part of in any exercise, right? And as you see, because the owners are very frequently, they can enter, and you will find lot of entrepreneurs entering this area. So these are some of the benefits which are there, but it also has certain limitations. Limitations can come in terms of, as I told you, because they are small time players, they operate at a very small scale, they would be having very less negotiating power when they are purchasing products from the, let's say, the companies. So when they buy from the other distributors or the company go downs, or the company negotiate with the company, since they're buying, they don't buy in bulk quantities, they buy in small quantities. Obviously, the negotiating power is very much restricted, and these stores are individual stores, so they would be restricted to one or two stores. So they do not have that bandwidth to also negotiate, right? And most of these firms are proprietary firms. They do not, they follow basic traditional formats of doing transactional business. They may not have technology which they could keep up. For example, their accounts may not be maintained on a, let's say, a software, or technology intervention could be low, or may not be having databases. They would be operating more on manual kind of operations, where the labor intensity, again, the labor part is again to some extent is dependent on who they want to keep, who the owner wants to keep. They would like to keep their own people, or no, the corporate chain stores, the retail chain stores, what are the advantages and disadvantages? Just to recap, that these are the stores which are multiple stores which are owned by a company at multiple locations. It could be within one city, it could be within one state, it could be across India. But the important thing is that they have to standardize the offering. That's why you will find that even if you are a global player, if you are operating in a particular area, you need to give that feel, because that's a promise that you keep. For example, if you're talking about a retail chain like CCD, they bring the same wherever you go to the CCD outlet, you should get the same kind of feel. So they have to standardize. But having said that, in case of certain food chain outlets, the standardization also allows little bit of tweaking in terms of adaptation. So one of the advantages that is you standardize the product, you give it the same kind of experience to customers wherever they are, even within the same city. Also, if you have multiple stores, you give the same kind of offerings. Now it brings in a lot of efficiency in terms of, you need to bring in a lot of efficiency in terms of your operations. You also looking, because you were dealing with the multiple number of outlets, you could also be, you can invest in bulk purchasing. So for that you need to have investment. That's the disadvantage part of it, but then that's the must do, because you must, if you have multiple stores, you need to have a very effective value chain in terms of sourcing your raw materials, providing it to the stores as and when required, and maintain inventories sufficiently. So you have to invest in godowns or warehouses and have a very effective transport system, which you need to control it. So many times it could be given to third parties, but ideally if you want to control it, you will have to keep a tab on that. So you can invest in that. So your investment parameters in a retail chain slightly goes up. In terms of flexibility, yes, you do have flexibility, but it is limited flexibility. For example, where you would like to put up your location, unlike in an independent store where you can go anywhere you feel like, you can't do that here, because there are certain standard guidelines which are pertinent to your offering. For example, if you're operating a food center, ideally it should be near to a business district or something like a retail, let's say a bus stop or a railway station or an airport, so that it brings in certain amount of limitation in terms of your location. Similarly, in terms of the people, you cannot keep as many people you feel like. You need to have standard people who could be operating, let's say, your the merchandise. Some of them have to take care of the customers. Some of them to do the billing. So you cannot employ the same person doing everything. So you need to have departmentalization, and it makes it slightly complicated. So you will find that complications do crop up in case of retail chains, and in case of retail stores, which are what is the different distance that you should be maintaining. That is also a limitation, because as according to, there's a Huff's law where you can create catchment areas and can attract customers to your store. But in this case, you cannot justify that if there are two stores, there's one store in particular area, the other person another area, customers can go into any of these stores, because they have the liberty to go anywhere. You cannot control that. So that is, if they find that, okay, particular store, the behavior is good, or the ambience is good, or the kind of product that they are providing is not stale. Let's say it's a food kind of a thing, or the quality is good. Ideally, the quality should be same everywhere. But there could be reputations like that, where that people are getting good products, or they are getting better products, or whatever it is. So that kind of a thing needs to be controlled, which can have some issues, because retail chains also operate under the next format, which we're going to talk about, the franchising format, which is again a very a kind of a variant which comes into play. And ideally, wherever you see, and these people play with one of the other advantages, that retail chain stores can communicate, can use technology, can use digital social media to communicate about their offerings and their events, whatever they are planning, and to a larger extent can evolve, can engage customers at a larger level in order to encourage more footfalls or encourage more customers to come, which is not the case of an independent store. The next important format which we look into is the franchising model. As I was telling you, franchising model is a very interesting, is a more, again, a very, very important part of a retail format which is used by the companies in order to gain more control in the marketplace. So a company which wants to expand, let's say I'm Domino's or I'm Pizza Hut, I want to establish 500 stores across the length and breadth of India. So what would be the best option available to me? Either I go direct or I go to through a route called franchising. Now, what happens in case of, if you, now the first option which I told you, that you can go on your own, but it is going to be major capital investment on your side, which you may not be always be appealing to you as a company. So what they do is they take a franchising model. So in the franchising model, what happens? There is a franchisor, the company which has got a certain reputation, has a certain brand image, and there is a local entrepreneur who can be a franchisee who wants to do the business, but if they are tagging along with a well-established branded franchisor, then in that case what happens, they would run the business, their entrepreneurship skills can come to fore. Looking into, yes, they would do it under the name of the franchisor's branding. That's the only compulsion. They have to have certain standard procedures, certain policies, and they have to also have a revenue sharing in form of royalties. So these are all worked out at the basic level, which works as to the advantage. It's a win-win situation both for the franchisor as well as the franchisee. The franchisee is generally drawn from the local markets who are seeking to have a better capture of the market share, because they would feel franchising is a better way of entering the market because you are talking to a known brand. If they were to invest on their own and try to make it up, it will take perhaps more time. So that is, this becomes more attractive to them. So that's a benefit to them. So they can learn also from the experience of the major company, the brand, and they also get access as a part of standard procedures which they have to operate. They get trained under very meticulous people who are there in the franchisor company. They train these people. They give a lot of inputs in terms of how to create more better promotional activities. They get into marketing assistance. They also ensure that how customers can be handled, right? And the ownership of franchises, it's a very slightly, it is not that if you have a franchising outlet, the franchisee is the owner. No, it could be the franchisor has a lot of impact in terms of what can be provided to the customer, because end of the day, the franchisor would never like in case of a Pizza Hut, I would not like anyone in my Pizza Hut outlet. I don't want any kind of other products other than my own products to be sold. So that franchising needs to take care of that. So for that, I would have to have the standard procedures and policies which needs to be implemented, and there could be a possible way of controlling. So, and you can control these outlets pretty well. Going forward, what are the limitations from a franchisee point of view? Yes, there can be saturation. In that case, what happens? In a given location, if there are multiple franchisee nearby, ideally that is why the franchisor has to ensure that the franchisee business is not getting saturated, and they are getting enough opportunity to cater to the market requirements. And obviously, as I told you, they are bound by certain rules and regulations and policies when they sign the MOU. Obviously, they will not be allowed to give that freedom to deal with whatever they feel like and stop whatever they feel like, right? And they would obviously, there will be a brief period of time which they have to comply with the franchisor. And the revenue sharing, mostly you will have to invest, first buy, and then once your sales are there, it is billed to you and you get the royalties. So from a company's point of view, which is who is a franchisor, the best advantage that they give is that they are able to reach out to more number of people with minimal capital investment. That is the biggest advantage for a franchisor. So as a company, if I want to have a franchising model, I would like to enter the market faster. This is a faster way of expanding my presence in a given market. As a result, what happens? I'm able to offer my products to a larger audience and a larger market. Going forward, what are the limitations? Yes, there can be limitations, because in such an environment, until unless the franchising model looks at both the franchisor as business partners, and there is a collaborative attempt you will find that sometimes the franchisee can play a real tough, can make the life of a franchisor difficult. So one has to be very careful about it. So there may be times that if the franchisee is not performing or doing some kind of goof up, then it can create an impression in terms of the brand image of the franchise. So that is a big problem for them. And between two franchisee, the local franchises, if there is a competition is good, but at the same time, if they start getting into conflict situation, it can be a problematic scenario for them. So many obviously, when you're looking at it, every role has its own positives and negatives. But these are some of the areas which one has to be aware of, right? Another thing which we look into is that, as I was telling you when I talked about retail stores, the behavior of the people. You can control the products, but what about the behavior of the people? In franchising, one franchisee is having the best of the people who are in terms of their behaviors towards their customers. They're taking care of them. The customer care is immensely good. But in others, franchisee outlet may be very shoddy. In that case, the franchisor suffers in terms of brand dilution. So they have to deal with that in terms of effectively handling the scenario. The next most important thing is the leased stores or the departments. This is a slightly different in terms of larger retail setups or departmental stores. What they do is, because they have huge amount of space, they can rent it out to certain companies. It's leased out to certain companies for opening up a small store. So if you're talking about a mall, for example, there are different stores which are given to the various retailers to open up their shops. So as a result, what is happening? The mall is able to attract more number of people, and for the leased guy is also getting an opportunity to showcase their products in a very good setting with minimal. Yes, they are paying the rent for that. They are signing a lease. They are paying the money for that, but they are able to enhance their offerings to the customers, giving multiple at keeping their overall cost in terms of overheads under control. So it's a win-win situation for both the leased departments as well as the the department which is the host retailer, which is leasing out the space to the other retailers. So it brings a lot of mutual benefit for each of them. But having said that, also has its own areas of concern. What could be the benefits to a person who is who is opening up there? Obviously, they are able to reach out to a larger, because they're in a part of a larger mall setup, they're able to cater to more number of customers, and they can, their overheads are controlled to a major extent. And it makes economic senses to get to be a part of these reputed brand of mall or the shopping or the departmental stores. Now, what is there for the least? This is for the lessee, but what is there for the lesser, the least structure? The company, obviously, the market is today is expanding, so they cater to larger. So you want to grab those customers who want to come to you. So for these departments, larger retail setup, they would like to attract by creating a kind of what I would say, an assortment of retailers who can cater to the likes and dislikes of the people. So that gives you them a lot of variety without getting into the nitty-gritties of how you will offer those particular products to the customer. So that is taken care of the small stores. A concept for anchor stores do come into play when you are looking into these kind of leasement. We always talk about the shop in shop. For example, in a retail, in a large retail, you will find a counter which is talking about a luxury, like a Gitanjali Jewelers, or any particular brand which is available. That helps you to showcase the product to a larger people. So, which earlier was not possible, you would have to invest a lot of money to get out. So, for the leased guy, he's ensuring that I'm taken care of by the person who is taking out the space to curate their products, to offer their products, and my utilization of space is there. I'm getting some kind of a rental over that. What do I offer to them? I give them a better environment, I give you better overheads, I'm giving better infrastructure. And for the lessee stores, they are getting a right kind of environment, they're getting the assortment of, they can curate their products well, they don't have to bother about the other nitty-gritties which are there with retail store operations. That is mostly taken care of. So many a times, if there is a misalignment, the negative part is that if there is a misalignment between the lessee and the lessor in terms of store branding, then the problem comes. So that okay, again, if the lessee is unable to get benefit of a larger store image, a company people are not coming in, then it becomes a problem. So obviously the lessee has a challenge in terms of even if people walk into the mall or the departmental store, how to attract by creating visual merchandising, creating more brownie points to attract the customers. Going forward, we will look into the cooperative system. Now, cooperative system is mostly handled by the government, and we'll find that government has put up the Khadi Bandars, the Kendriya Bandars, and so on and so forth, the Super Bazaar, which is basically their objective is to ensure that you are giving the customers a quality product at an affordable price. So that is the idea, and they're making consistent quality standards wherever they are operational, right? So, and of course, it's very personally satisfying to the consumer experiences also. And cooperatives lessen the number of middlemen right from the point of manufacture to the consumption. So if you see a distribution channel, there will be multiple number of people. So in this case, in cooperatives, those things are minimized to the minimum. As a result, the customers also get things at a cheaper price because you don't have to give those trade margins, right, the margins to other retailers, as well as you're able to ensure quality at an affordable rate. So that is something which is a desirable thing from their point of view. So that is some of the advantages. And secondly, we thought another limitations which are there, the challenges are there in terms of governance. Because these people are very slow to react, and it has been found that the footfalls cannot be controlled so easily. Many times they are not where they are found wanting in terms of the marketing communication which others, the retail chain stores or the franchisees would develop, would engage in. These are lesser known, as a result of which the brand visibility or the brand awareness, if I may say, could be lessened. So I'm not saying lessened, but then yes, it's not as at par with them because they don't follow a very aggressive way of promoting themselves. Another challenge is in terms of the skilled manpower which is required in the cooperative stores. That can be really because you cannot give the same kind of salaries which these other stores give. So managing the scale of the salary levels which the other formats gave may not be could be a challenge. So that is another problem area in case of these consumer cooperatives. Next, we move to the vertical marketing system. Now, when you talk about vertical marketing system, one has to understand that what is a conventional marketing distribution system. The conventional distribution system starts with the manufacturer, with the wholesaler, the retailer, and the consumer. The vertical marketing system has divided the entire, what you call the engagement in terms of three buckets: the manufacturer, the wholesaler, and the retailer, who ultimately sell to the consumers. Mostly these are in different formats, right? And the retailer does experience the challenge in controlling the channel of distribution. You see, for a company to reach out to their customers, they would like to have a distribution system or a system of where the products which are being manufactured going to the point of consumption, where they have a very strong control. The more the number of levels of distribution or the intermediaries, the more the difficulties in terms of the control. So vertical marketing system tries to overcome that in terms of getting into a tacit understanding or trying to control those sources in order so that you can reach out to customers faster. You can take care of the middlemen. You may overcome some of the impediments which are there. So they appear in three formats. One, it could be that there's an independent marketing system where the manufacturing, the wholesaling, and the retailing are governed by individual players, but they are worked according to a vertical, their basic understand where will the things come from, how will they do. So individual companies are there which are taking care of this. So there is a limited control, but at the same time you are able to control both in terms of the backward as well as the forward integration to take care of the customer requirement, right? And yes, to some extent it may restrict the kind of customer options would be there. But yes, but definitely it has its own advantages. Going forward, you can also have partial integrated vertical marketing systems. That means into manufacturing and retailing, they could club together. Companies would like to get into taking the wholesaler out. They would invest in something called partial integration and say that I will use my own warehouses to cater to the retailing sector, to the retail outlets, creating my own retail formats to reach out to the people, right? So thereby what happened in your vertical management, you are taking control partially of certain and integrating that into your distribution system. The other one is called the fully integrated. Now, not many companies would like to get into this, is because right from manufacturing to wholesaling to the retailing, there are multiple, all the activities are controlled by the company. This integrated completely. Only big players can play into this. If you talk in terms of independent system of vertical marketing systems, you will find mostly the food chains, right? The eating outlets, they follow an independent kind of a vertical marketing system. Whereas when it comes to your the partially integrated, you get things like restaurants, computer merchants, or mail order or appliance stores. Those are the ones which will get into a kind of a partially integrated systems. Whereas you will find more independent vertical marketing systems aligned to the manufacturer, wholesaler, and retailer, right? Fully integrated system, as I told you before, companies, big players like ITC or HUL, they've been able to control most of these areas, right from manufacturing, where they're manufacturing, how do they create their warehouses, the transportation, and integrate it into the retailer system so that they have a better control to get to cater to the market requirements. So these are some of the vertical marketing systems which are existing in the retail formats. They keep on evolving from time to time. You cannot say one particular thing is better than the other, but the idea here is in a vertical marketing system, apart from the conventional system, here you try to get into a tacit control in terms of reaching out to your customer, in terms of accessing your customer. So from a distribution point of view, it makes a lot of sense to get into a vertical marketing system. Next, we move into something called a dealership, right? Dealership, as the name suggests, that it is a hybrid kind of a scenario which emerges in terms of a licensor and a licensee. It's a hybrid form of a franchising model and an independent store. So if I'm an independent store, I can become a dealer of yours and can operate under my independent priorities. So it is a kind of, yes, I get operational independence, but at the same time, it is moderated to certain requirements. Like for example, you'll find that in automobile stores, in automobile dealers, they are authorized dealers, which means what, the dealers can deal with other brands also. But when you're an authorized dealer, that particular outlet independently looks into a tie-up with a particular company and become a licensee for providing those products in the marketplace. Unlike franchising, where you have a restriction in terms of what kind of products, in this case, you do not have that kind of a requirement. So you can showcase, but ideally it makes sense for you to provide products to the customers in terms of what the licensee the licensor gives you in terms of that licensing agreement. So there is no royalty, unlike in franchisee where there it could be a 60-40 or 70-30 as the case may be. Mostly it's a 60-40 where the franchisee retains the 60% and pays the 40% royalty. Here in this case, it is not so, because here we are talking in terms of basically you are licensing the right to reach out to those people. And if you talk, so most of the if you talk about after sales value added services given by dealers, that is something which an auto dealer, if I'm an automobile dealer, if I'm the car dealer would like to give something of his own or create more services. So he would have a tie-up with, yeah, they would say that I would give services to the end consumer. I will open an after sales services store, but at the same time, I will talk in terms of the way it has to be operationally handled. So in terms of operational, they have a lesser control. The company, the licensor has a lesser control in terms of, so which could be a kind of a problem going forward, because it can mess up with the image of the company. Going forward, if you look into, there is networking, multi-level networking. What happens in this kind of marketing, this kind of stores, here individuals, family, friends, they get involved in reaching out to the various customer. It is also called multi-level marketing, which you must have seen in case of your in case of what is called Amway, right? They involve this kind of where products are sold through personal networks, and it is a commission based. So anybody who sells it gets a commission. So if there is something kind of a networking which you do, you create a kind of a chain of customers, and each transaction leads to a commission based earning for the people. So people do, there are multi-level marketing which is also bringing some like things like Oriflame, or they make a lot of money by reaching out to those people. Even your Herbalife talks in terms of multi-level marketing, where they not only talk about, they create workshops, they have a lot of avenues in terms of engaging with the person, the people at large, call them for workshops, bring them, making them, onboarding them. They also, not only that, they also bring them into their personal network so that their networks can go. So it is kind of a one network invite to another network. So thereby your market capture becomes higher and higher, and it grows in a very high at a higher level. So this is very, very effective in some cases. With this, today we have looked at the various retail formats which are existing in the marketplace. But understand, these formats are susceptible to change according to the market environment, which we have already talked about. So there is a level of innovation which needs to be there, and today the reliance on technology to integrate into the retail formats is extremely high, but it depends upon what kind of market scenarios exist at the grassroots level. With this, we come to the end of this session. Thank you so much.